They're not practicing.
Okay. So, first question. Uh, After researching online about routers, right, I discovered that it has two IP addresses.
Yeah.
So, and this is one is for local area network and one is for wide area network. So,
Yeah.
why is that? I can't understand.
Because one is the delivery address to which your data will come in on, that's like your phone number at home. And then you'll have a second card which will form part of your network. Because if you think, if your company's IP address is, say, 128.243.70.1, and your network within your company is all 10.0.0.1, they will actually be on different subnets. So what you would do is you would configure the card of the internal network to match your own. Yeah. It's the same if you've got broadband at home, you put the broadband router in, have a wide area network access IP address which connects up to Malaysia Telecom or whoever you use. But all your IP addresses inside your home will have their own IP address, as will the router itself. And internally it will know which traffic needs to stay within inside the building and which needs to go outside it.
Oh, so that's why we have to allocate two IP addresses.
Yeah, so one is the IP address that the network on the inside sees it, the other is the IP address that the outside world sees it.
Okay.
And these two IP addresses are part of the static IP addresses that you mentioned?
Well, they have to be, because for the outside world to find you, that address cannot change, and you may have many of them. Obviously, internally, when you set it up, you tell it where to send traffic that's going outside the building, so you need to know which gateway to send it so it can then be forwarded on your behalf.
Okay.
Yep. Morning. Right after the new.
So, but you mentioned there will be two, right? So both are static, but one will be public and one will be local. So the local one,
Correct.
We allocate whatever we want to.
Yeah, you just basically need to say, this will be the IP address of my router, and I will be happy with that. Don't worry too much what it is.
And so, layer 3, I have read everywhere, is that layer 3 switches must have their own static IP addresses?
Yes, because they are where you send data to, so that it can be forwarded on. If your switch starts moving, it's like the router at a local level. You need to know where to send the data so that it can be forwarded on. It's a bit like if you had a printer whose IP address get changed, you'd never be able to print anything because you wouldn't be able to find it. It's a fixed point in your network.
Sir, if we do not have a subnet, then we do not need layer 3 switches, right? Because layer 2 switches will do fine just for one subnet.
They will, but be careful how you want to subnet your phone traffic if you're going to do that on a separate bit of the network to make sure that you get decent quality of service. So because of the fact that we're sharing some data points between phone and PCs, decide if you think that your network is so large that that would be a problem. But don't forget as well that at some point you are going to be routing data out. So layer 3s for the cost are actually just better, even if you almost think of running them in layer 2 mode, because they have an interface that you can connect to, and if there's any problems you can normally find them. Layer 2 switches tend to be a bit dumb, they just work. So you could have layer 3 switches but on one subnet and it would work, but it would just give you a little bit more control over your network. Yeah, and that's not, I don't think there's much price. And price isn't a problem in this anyway, we're looking at just doing it properly anyway.
Yeah.
So, one more question about the IP addresses. Every IP address would have /24 at the end, or 25 or 26 at the end. But if you want to create a subnet, let's say from 192.168.1.50 to .100 or .150. So can we mention that, or do we have to give that in the notation?
You can do it either way. I mean, I don't need you to give every single IP address because you'll be there forever.
Okay.
So the way I look at it is, and the way I'm going to tell my students today, is basically, I like tables, as you know. So I have a table which says, this little bank of IP range, of IP numbers, will have the following subnet mask, and I will assign them. For servers, I'd expect you to say which your 10 servers are and normally give them each an IP address. For your servers, you would probably hard code them in so that when the network was coming up, they would know what they are. So you would put a note in hard coded so you don't have a lease time. Then have another block of IP addresses, say, for your printers, and say, I will allocate 50 IP addresses from this number to this number for my printers, and I would give them a lease time of, and probably go for a day so that it refreshed around lunchtime.
Sorry, sir, can you mention
And then,
about the
so build a bit. Well, a lease time, if you remember, is how long you get the IP address and the DHCP zone. So if you said I will give you a lease time of a day, it would refresh halfway through the day, but that's enough. A printer doesn't need to change that often. Then you'd say for the office PCs, I'll allocate this bank of IP addresses, and then you could just state for bulks of them, I would have this subnet mask, I would have this gateway, and all the bits that would go to it, and then you'd say what lease time you do for that. And then if you look at the wireless access points which are for your visitors, you'd say I would give them this little range of IP addresses, but probably for a shorter lease time because of the fact that people are going to be coming and going. And that is really why you will need the layer 3 switches, because if you're going to protect your network from the people on the wireless network, you would actually put a VLAN in to separate them out.
So I mean, so layer 3 can do it automatically without the need of saying that we need to create a VLAN?
No, if you want to have separate network traffic all on the same cables, you really need a VLAN to do it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you have your wireless access point with the same IP addresses as your main network, if people start doing bad things on your network, when they're visitors, they've got viruses on their machines and whatever, it could impact badly on what you're doing. But if you buy the right switch, it's merely a configuration setting. I'm not asking you to implement the VLAN, just say, I would create a VLAN. Have any of you got a little book with you at the moment? Got your course book? Have you got that thing, course book?
Oh,
We have it in front of us.
yeah, yeah.
Right. The easiest way to, I've got to find the page. Look at page 28.
Yeah.
The logic diagram?
See the picture with all the little boxes on?
Yeah.
The one that showed you basically how the network goes together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sample ABC.
It's a fairly good hint on how to do it.
So do we have?
And that's all I need.
So do we create a sample network like this? Do we create a diagram like this?
It would make doing your coursework very easy because I will then go tick.
Okay. And so
As I said, pick.
if we have, let's say, if we wanted to, I wanted to do this, and I have multiple Exchange servers, mail Exchange servers. So how do I have to show the multiple of them, or just say that there are 3 here?
I would prefer a little box because then I can see immediately that you've got them, go tick, tick, tick.
Okay.
And Visio is very good, it's got graphics in it. You can just drag a little PC in and give it a name.
So do we have to have as many servers as it's shown in the picture? Like we have like 10.
Oh yes,
So we have to include all these servers.
yes. If you look at the marking scheme on the back page, it tells you that. If you look on the very, very, very last page,
Yeah.
And so why is the file storage outside the firewall and not inside it?
some of it is, some of it isn't. If it's shared file storage for, say, the outside world, like a document store, that's okay. But if you look at the bottom, some of it is also inside it as well.
And so, what is the NAS? Many of us are confused. What is the NAS?
NAS.
Yeah, NAS.
Network attached storage.
Yeah.
It's a hard disk. You know where you've got your Z drive or whatever you have in Malaysia, your local file store?
Yeah.
That's NAS.
Okay. Also, but
It's
there's a server also connected with document storage. Is that different?
yeah, so what? No, it's just a piece of stuff. I mean, don't forget, this is just a general idea. All that is, it's, you know, like if you go to Microchip, it's a website of PDFs that you can download. It is simply a store of documents that are available. But all NAS is, it basically goes into a rack and it's just many, many disks that you access as drives. It doesn't run anything like an operating system as such. It just presents drives on the network.
So, and when we're doing, do we have to do costing or we have to tell like we're going to buy hard disks for this?
Yes. Because if you buy servers, they do not come with disks.
No.
Nor do they come with memory.
I'm saying the costing. Do we have to do the cost of each disk?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, for the servers, can we use one one hardware for like 3 servers?
Depends what they are. Ideally, you would have one thing running per server. You can virtualize some of them if you have hardware that's up to it and you keep maybe 2 virtualization servers. Things that you wouldn't want to risk being virtualized would be your Active Directory servers. Because if they go down, everything in the network will go down because they depend on them. You might say that I could maybe put the print server and, I don't know, that's probably better, an application server on the same machine. But for your company, it's relatively light. All you've really got is 2 AD servers for resilience, some file store, which would be NAS attached, so there's no real need to mirror that. A web server outside, and web server, it's not a mass of servers, this is sort of overkill. But 10 servers for a company your size is not expensive. You're not trying to save money. Because if you did, I don't know, did you get hit yesterday with the mail system going down? The Outlook 360? It might have happened overnight or something. But all of Microsoft, all the emails in China, Malaysia and the UK for undergraduates went down because of a fault with the Active Directory at Microsoft. Now, if that's inside your company, if your AD servers go down, nobody can log in, they can't do any work. So it's going to cost you more than £3,000 in a couple of hours than it would to buy another server just to make sure that it's always ran.
And one more thing you mentioned in the class that we have to choose a server with mirroring capabilities, right?
Mirroring is on the disk. So what you do is normally if you build a PC, you put a hard disk in it, you call it the C drive, and that's it. The problem is if that disk were to break, your machine goes down. So in servers, what you do is you have as much redundancy as you can. So you don't just have one power supply, you have 2. So if one power supply goes, the other one is capable of running the machine. And they're normally plug and play. So you take the broken power supply out, you plug the new one in, and the machine keeps going. The same with disks. If you were to lose the disk, you don't want the server to get out. So what you do is you have what's called mirrored disks, where you've essentially got 2 C drives. Whatever you write to one is automatically copied to the second one. So if one of those disks goes down, you can actually, while the machine is running, you just pull it out, put a replacement disk back in, and it will play catch up. And at that point, you've got the machine keeping going, even though essentially while it's been running, you changed the C drive.
But there's no like specific hardware for this. It's just also.
Yeah, but the service you buy, this is all standard technology for them. If you look at proper, I mean, we tend to buy, I think, HP ProLiant servers. I think we buy that one. It's just built into them because that's what servers need to do. You know, if your PC breaks, it's annoying to you, but the rest of the company doesn't suffer. If the server goes down, everybody suffers.
So do we have to include the cost of video conferencing equipment?
No, you may assume it is there, you are just providing the infrastructure for it. You don't, apart from servers, you do not need to buy any further equipment. You may need to buy software, and don't forget to buy the software, you're not allowed to steal it.
So that's like servers, sorry, software, you're buying the licenses for the servers as well as
Yeah.
other antivirus software that we want to push out as a company.
Yeah, you would just buy a company piece of software, find anyone who wants to just quote it, I don't care.
Okay.
As long as you bought one.
Okay.
Sir, the telephone which is running software on it,
Yep,
yeah, which is actually attached to the computer.
yep,
Yeah, so does that telephone also have an ID?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Because, well, if it runs the software within the PC, that's slightly different. If it is another physical device, it will have to have its own IP address.
Oh, okay.
So, but if we are running through the computer, then we just, anyway, we are allocating them IP address, so it doesn't matter. Is it?
Correct, you will just take the IP address of the PC home to. You can try it, you can download one, but
But then that means we have to allocate them a static IP address, because then we would have to know the IP address of the phone.
it would depend at this point, and you would need to look into this, on the phone software you're using. I've never installed them, but I would suspect that you may log into your phone and then it would work out where you are and then know how to forward on your phone calls to you. Because you may be moving around offices. So I suspect it's like Skype, you log in
Okay.
and it knows where you are.
Okay. So we
Do
do we have to mention this in the coursework?
No, you don't need to go into the details of the application. You are putting in place the ability to run things.
Sir, in the coursework, about the VoIP.
Yep.
Yeah, the VoIP. The third section. I think it's the third section.
Yep.
So what is it? What are the requirements actually? Sales, devices, telephonies.
Yeah, so what I want you to have done is show that you've looked into this. Now, if you go onto Google and do search for VoIP telephone systems, one will pop up, I think, almost immediately. Be warned, you will never get rid of it from Facebook. It will haunt you for the rest of your lives. But basically, it will tell you all about it. So all you're saying is, I will remember that I have to have a server running my telephone software, because that's where all the phone calls route through.
Oh, okay.
And then I will have to remember that I'm having the software on the devices that will connect to it. So you just need to go away, work out which software you're going to use, and it's something like 3XCOM. You will, once you see it, you'll be haunted by it for the rest of your life because it invents itself in your cookie collection. But it will tell you, it shows you that it will run on Android devices, iPhones, it will run on software, and is compatible with all favourite IP telephones. So if you just put in your appendix even, we are buying this, I'm happy.
Okay.
In the same way that I wouldn't expect you to go and do the install of all the server software, you're simply saying, we will be running Windows Server and the version number. On this server we will put this, on this server we will install this software, and then you would have people do it for you. You are not physically going and doing it, you are specking on what is to be done.
And so for the backup strategy,
Yeah,
do we just need to mention what kind of backup are we doing and how often, and that's it?
yeah, again, table.
Table.
So basically, tables are your friend. So a table of what you will back up, so it will be all your servers. Basically, for each server you could say, I will do a full backup on a Monday, I'll do incremental on these, you might do backups throughout the day. And then another table which would be your retention policy, how long you will keep the backups for, so that somebody could then go away and they can set that up for you.
Yeah. How do we usually keep the data for? Like how long? A year?
That's for you to tell. That's for you to tell me. Very good. Listen to him.
So firewall is part of the router, right?
It can or can't be. The one I showed you, the little triangle one, is probably the easiest way of displaying it. You tend to buy a device where it's all combined, it's easier to do. From your point of view, from this company, that's probably what you would buy. So you could either have your connection to the outside world, then your firewall, then your network. Your firewall might be software running on a PC that sits between the outside world and the inside world and has a couple of cards in it. Again, as long as you give me sensible firewall rules, I'll assume that your hardware is capable of supporting it.
My question for the firewall rules. So for firewall rules, because we are saying it runs off a proxy server, so does the port number change from 80 to something else?
No. It doesn't run on the proxy server. The proxy server is simply handling web requests. So if I wanted a web page, I would ask the proxy server. The proxy server would send that out, and the only route for web traffic would be through your proxy server. So you would open, yes, but you would need to open a few more ports than just 80, because 80 is HTTP, but remember we also have HTTPS. So what you do, so you'd say to the firewall, you will allow traffic on port 80, and I think it's 443, to the proxy server and only to the proxy server. And then internally, things would be able to see the proxy server anywhere, and they would be configured to send all their traffic to the proxy server. Or if you bought very, very expensive switches, you could just tell it to automatically forward web traffic to them anyway, and then it would become visible to your users.
So we have to just open SMTP, our port AP, and SSL, only things that we essentially, we don't have to open everything.
Oh God, no. Close everything, open the least possible, and only to specific machines inside your network. And for your webmail, which will be in your DMZ, you open that to the outside world through the firewall. But since that has then got to be able to retrieve mail from your Exchange server, you open the port to your Exchange server only to that machine. So user mail goes essentially on two hops.
So you're saying, so that means in that case only if we can open, if you have multiple Exchange servers, then we have to open multiple times.
Yes. In which case you would have multiple MX records, one per Exchange server, and then your mail would come in, depending on what your preference for the loading was, to one of those Exchange servers. But yes, if you want them to receive mail, you would have to open port 25, and remember that you'd have to create the MX record for them, so you'd have to create the A-name record for them and register that with your DNS servers provided by your external company.
Actually, when you did the overview in your lecture in the UK, and then let's say you did about the MX records, it was like Nottingham.ac.uk, the preference 10, and then it would have the mail exchanger equal to some kind of thing, Nottingham.ac.uk, and then the IP address of it. That IP address is public, right?
Yes, it has to be, because otherwise the mail can't come in.
And then we have to open, and then we need A name or a C name to give it an alias so that it has local IP address. Is that correct?
It has to have an A name before you can give it a C name. A C name is just an alias. It's like a nickname for a friend. you have to, so the A name is the direct mapping of host name to host IP address. The C name is native, so it could be www.ee.nottingham.az.uk is an alias to norton.ee.nottingham.az.uk. The A name record was created for Norton, so when you ask for www.ee, you actually indirectly get the IP address of Norton. And then if I wanted to send mail to that, I would then have to add an NX record, which could point to either Norton or directly to the IP address, or theoretically to www.ee, because they all point to the same thing.
So in that case of what we discussed about the mail server that shows in the MX record that you showed on the IP config.
Yeah.
So that means there must be another A record that connects it to that.
You must have an A record and which is for your mail server that is completely accessible. I've got to go. Out of the room. But yeah, you'll get this as well, because I'm going to go through all this with my lecture and not video it again.
Okay.
If you think of any more, email me after you watch the lecture, yes?
Okay, right.
Excellent. Have a very nice weekend, everyone.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Still can hear you. Can hear you, brother.
Hang on. Subscribe to this channel.